Hey, okay, Oscar. Um, all I've been able to do is with the hectic way it is when you're coming back from vacation is just now, just before this meeting, print out the various things that have come in recently. My reason for suggesting a meeting was that I think when we met before, it was just the very day that the MBTA guidelines had been issued, and I hadn't really fully digested them. And I feel more prepared now as far as the MBTA guidelines go. I've had a discussion with Lee, a discussion with Katie King on how we interpret things. And of course, there are unanswered questions. Excuse me, Oscar, I'm going to take this call about my sister. Give me a second.
Yes.
Oh, hello, this is Jean. Yes. Yes, Dr. Nicholson. Yeah. Right.
There we go. Okay, I just
Sorry,
I muted you because I thought it was appropriate.
yeah,
to
I
mute
went down the hall, but still it was, I should have just done, I just muted it first.
you.
Okay,
Not at all.
all right, here we go.
So,
Well, back to business here.
yes.
I printed out everything that came in that's relevant to our work in the Housing Plan Working Group, zoning subgroup. But I haven't had a chance to go through it. But what I really wanted to do was take a look at our, I don't know, the best thing would be the memo, the memo that went along with the implementation roadmap, or the implementation roadmap, to look at our recommendations. Because as I think about them, and I think about the new guidelines, there are some that I think might well be changed. And just off the top of my head, let me give you an example. Because of the way the MBTA guidelines describe developable land and excluded land, I don't think we would be allowed to include, for example, our public library as you go up the hill on Hillside. I thought, we probably could. I didn't see anything that said you couldn't include the Episcopal Church, but it might be a gray area. However, you know how we talked about and put in our implementation roadmap, adding the same apartment use in the Hillside Industrial District, that's on Hillside Avenue, right there, right across the street from Rosemary Ridge.
Yep.
We talked about making that change so that apartments would be allowed. As I interpret the MBTA guidelines now, you know how what we're struggling with is this 25 acres. We need 25 acres. How are we going to get it? But I think that even if it's not the same zone, as long as it allows the same use, it can be counted.
Yes.
So we put together, so now beautiful, we put together the Petrini Apartments, Rosemary Ridge, the industrial zone on Hillside, and then we continue actually up Hillside. And I think we recommended in the Hillside Ave Business District, which already allows apartments.
Do you see my screen?
Yeah, let's see now.
Do you see the map on my screen?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So the Hillside Avenue Business District is that light pink. So it would be
Yes.
2B.
Yes.
Let's see.
Right. And so 2B was Hillside Avenue Business increased dimensionally to apartment 1. Yes.
There you go. So not only do we take in all that long industrial district, but then we go all the way up with the business district.
Yes.
So I actually think we're okay.
Yes.
With the 25 acres, and we shouldn't be trying to bring it up. And Lee, I asked Lee why. You see, right along Rosemary Street, just below the 3A, just below that fuchsia color.
Yes.
Why is that still single resident? I think it's single residence. Yeah, single residence.
Yeah,
and
bizarre.
Then also, the Highland Avenue there, the business district that's just called business, where Bertucci's area.
Yep.
Why is that single residence?
No, it's strange.
And Lee said there's a history to that. The town did not want exits from Sudbury Farms
onto Rosemary.
onto Rosemary Street.
But you could do that without doing it with a use district. You just don't allow curb cuts or access. Yeah, it seems
Oh,
so.
I don't
It does
know.
seem strange, right? You would put there are other ways to create restrictions on
Well, if you
entry and exit.
own, well, if, for example, if this use at the time required a special permit, you could not issue the special permit for access off Rosemary. But I don't know what the zoning was at that time. I mean, I've lived in Needham for 33 years and there's always been a Sudbury Farms. It must go way back.
Right.
So there might very well have been a concern about them putting in access. And if you know, I don't think that if you own land on a public way, it seems, I mean, you have a right to put in a driveway in general. So anyway, that's the explanation. Whether the reasons for it make sense or not, that's what people thought at the time, according to Lee. So I don't know that we need to really fuss with that. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because we don't need to bring this district up to the library and the Episcopal Church. So then if we've got our 25 acres, then what we need to do is get the 50 acres. I mean, the total of 50 acres somewhere.
Yep.
And so I think that's relatively easy to do with what we're proposing.
So Gene, I just put up just for the sake of our discussion, this is now showing more clearly the new zoning. So we've now said we'll continue this
right
A1, but in fact, we're basically saying apartments, you know, the density is available throughout this district.
Right. And then, oh, interesting. Oh, then when we're off Honeywell on both sides of Highland Avenue leading up to Webster Green. Oh, I know. That's.
Yeah, so I'll go back to the other
one. What that area is.
Right, so this one is, right, so if here's the unfiltered one, so.
Oh, okay.
This is not the changed one, right? So
this is that's Webster Green.
Right, this gray is, yes.
All right. And then oh, I know what. Then we were going across Highland Avenue to pick up what's it called? Is it 1K here? 1K Avery,
yes.
Avery Park condominium. Yes. And include Avery Field. I have to check again on including Avery Field because of the concern about restricted land or something. But I do think we should bring that across the street. There's no reason why that shouldn't be zoned apartment, because it is apartment, the Avery Park condominium. But so as not to be bringing before town meeting rezonings that would be controversial and likely to be defeated when we don't need them. I'm wondering about like that area, which this shows 1J from Hamilton Highlands. Oh yeah, but there's a 40B project there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the right. We were saying we might as well.
Yeah, we might as well get a 40B project on the corner.
Yep.
Yeah. And
I mean, that probably won't be changed in our lifetime. But
then what's across the street, in addition to Avery Park condominium, is like between Alfreton Street and Honeywell Street.
Yes, that's
the other church, isn't it?
That's the other church. Yes, there are two churches, I think. Yes.
what is that? That's the Methodist.
Yes. The
Yes.
one that's north of Alfreton is actually a single residence. That's a big site, right? It's unusual. And then the project in the rectangle just to the left of the green space is that Avery Manor? Is that what that is? I think so.
Yeah, I think it's, well, we've referred to it as Avery Park Condominium.
The one that's the old brick building.
Yeah, it's an old school,
Yes.
the converted
Right.
school into a condominium.
Right. So that's right here. Yes.
Yeah. And then when
Okay.
you said further include Avery Field, if that's the green space next to it,
We're not, we didn't want to do that, to include that green space, right?
so, all right, so the reference to Avery Field, then I'm not sure what it's referring to. I should go drive around there. Like,
I guess south to include Avery Field. Yeah, we should probably change that text.
Yeah, the focus is on Avery Park Condominium. I think
Yes.
is the idea.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think we were debating whether that park is of benefit, and it probably is. Getting rid of green space is a problem, I think. Right.
So, yeah.
Let's
I think if we tinker with that so that we're really only focused on the Avery, what we'll call the Avery Park condominium. And I can now appreciate again the reason why for extending to the corner of Honeywell on the west side of Highland makes sense. All right.
So we agree though that we like this block, this whole 1K. It takes Avery.
Yeah, I think so.
Park
Well, I'm now
and the church.
I'm now kind of doubtful about the church again. We were including these churches. I'm just not sure if it makes sense. When I look over the minutes of our last meeting, there really wasn't a lot of detailed response to these proposals on the part of the Housing Plan Working Group. Correct. And we're going to elicit that at this meeting.
Or at a separate meeting, whether it's going to be time for us to go through point by point.
Yeah.
With the group, or if we should set up a map review, a zoning map, and walk through with people in more detail, because it's going to get time consuming.
It would. Here's Heidi. Heidi, hi.
Hi, Heidi.
I was just I'm just going to pull out our schedule.
Yeah.
It's a revised schedule
tomorrow night.
We were talking, Heidi. Maybe Oscar, shall I just bring Heidi up to date a bit?
Yeah, sure.
We were talking about having a better understanding than we did when we last met, our zoning subgroup, of the MBTA guidelines. I've had a discussion with Lee Newman and with Katie King, and really feel I understand them better after further review. And so I think that there are some features of it that that help us, and some features that mean it's difficult to do some of the things we originally had recommended as a zoning subgroup. The thing that helps us is, for example, if you look at the Petrini Apartments off on Rosemary Street, across from Rosemary Lake, and then Rosemary Ridge, and that's already zoned Apartment 1, and that's all great. And we've been talking about putting apartments just like the ones across the street, as far as dimensions and so forth, in the industrial zone, that fuchsia colored zone, 3A. And the guidelines don't require, like this idea, you have to have a 25-acre contiguous area. It can have a public way going through it the way it does here, but a 25-acre contiguous area, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same zone. as long as it allows exactly the same apartment type use. So what we do is take apartments that are allowed in apartment A, and we allow apartments with the same controls in that fuchsia area 3A. Then we go north to the Highland Avenue business area, which also presently allows apartments, but it might not be at the correct density. We've already proposed that we make that change. So the idea is we just include that fuchsia, then we go up north and include the pink, and I'm sure we have our 25 acres. So we previously had proposed something that really might seem a little strange to people. We were going to go up Rosemary Street and rezone that SRB single family B area on both sides of Rosemary Street, and then rezone the library, and then go across Highland Avenue and rezone the Episcopal Church just to get the 25 acres. But we don't need to do that.
Right.
And let's not do it.
Well,
Okay. I just want to throw out one thing though, which is something I wanted to share with you guys, regardless of this conversation, which is that I have learned, I don't know, maybe you all know this, but that the Presbyterian Church has come very close to sale a number of times over the past few years. This is not the church. This is not this church. This is the church on the corner of Great Plains and
Central and Great Plain.
But my point is this, we talked about whether we rezone the churches, and that some people will object to that. But I do think it's really necessary. So whether we, I take your point that we already have the contiguous acres, and thus we don't need to do that sort of awkward thing that we were planning to do. And I think that's fine if we don't do it. But I do still think that we need to rezone the churches. I think all of them, and possibly even the temple. I mean, just to keep things, on the same playing field. I do think it's really important. Like, those buildings very well could go up for sale. We don't know what the future holds, and that is a trend. And I just wanted to throw that out there, that whether or not it's something that we plan to do, we're zoning for the eventuality. And so I agree with you, Jean, that we don't need to do that weird dog leg, but I do think we still need to rezone the church.
Well, it may be that there are certain churches that lend themselves to that because they're right in the perfect location, but the Episcopal Church doesn't. It's separated from I just don't think that it needs.
It's not a question of whether it's well placed for a contiguous area. It's a question of whether or not, if that church was sold, would it be a good place to put apartments?
Yes, I think that's right.
That's the question.
I think, Jean, if you look at this as the proposed map, and it's basically saying what is currently zoned as single family, which is sort of questionable, right? Is that strip of land facing Rosemary and below that industrial. And then, as Jean had some interesting history on why this little piece at the end of Sudbury Farms's parking lot was zoned as single family, and we understand that could have been to prevent any access to this business commercial zone off of Rosemary.
Yeah, driveways.
So that's, it's a little weird, but anyway, the history, the backstory. And so I think doing what we're proposing to do here, and take the churches and take this strip of land and this strip of land and marry it to both the fuchsia and the business, the industrial and the business, makes a lot of sense, because it doesn't make sense to have anything of a strip of single family against this district when we're changing this district to be apartment. Just extend this so that they effectively can be, merged.
Well, I can see that.
Right?
I can see that, Oscar, that extending that industrial, because as a matter of fact, there already is the primary entrance to the biggest building in that industrial park right off Rosemary.
Right.
So
It's
that
already functioning as if it was not. single family.
absolutely.
Right.
So I do agree that bringing it down to Rosemary on that side of the tracks makes sense. But
And
the
frankly,
library and the church and even the
And-
little strip of, well, we may as well include the little strip of Sudbury too, as a matter of fact, because if we're talking about allowing apartments in that business zone, that little pink one.
Yep.
It does make sense to go to Rosemary, doesn't it?
this consolidates that entire zone so that the uses are essentially, fluid
Yeah.
through that zone, and it doesn't create any strange hiccups. But then we do go from the church and the library north, and there we're saying we're going to go from single family to general residence, which simply adds the 2-family component for those set of blocks that line Highland.
Can you remind me? I apologize. I totally can't see this map.
You can't see it? Oh.
Well, I mean, I can see it, but it's very small. Just remind me that.
Can you see that?
Yeah, that where the building for Sudbury sits.
Here.
That's okay. That's already in a.
It's in this. Yes, it's in this business district.
So it's already zoned for apartments or.
Yeah. So the parking piece of
Okay.
the piece of the parking lot is single family.
Is just left out. Okay, I just wanted to remember if that was the case.
What I haven't checked is whether or not this is exclusively parking lot or whether the parking lot is split and it's got a little bit of both zones, and then Sudbury's down here. I'd have to go check and see dimensionally
Okay.
if.
But
The idea is to make it uniform.
But you
Yeah.
wonder whether the way that should be treated is, rather than extending apartment A1 down on the bottom side of, would be
Bring the business up.
bring the business up.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, I think.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah.
Could you put, forgive me, could you put apartments in the business?
Well, we're talking about doing that already.
Yes.
That's one of our
Okay.
primary real
saying-
locations that somebody might really build something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just want
so
to make sure that we're not
Heidi,
disqualifying.
if you look at 2A, we're basically saying amend the current business districts within the half
Okay.
mile to allow multifamily. So no, they don't currently.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm at work, and first of all, forgive me for eating my lunch, but also I don't have a lot of this stuff right in front of me. So I apologize. I'm a little unprepared.
No, that's okay. That's why I just put it up in front of us so we can talk about it. Yeah, I think, in a way, Gene, the thought is it would be cleaner if we just expand the business to just to complete that. So that's basically one zone instead of having it split. It's kind of strange. So I can do that. We can amend the map for that.
Yeah, because, but we really have to leave the library out, and if there are any other public property that we've considered other than housing authority property, because we have to look at the definition of developable public land. The only public land we can include is developable public land, and that's the bottom of page 2 of the MBTA definitions.
But
And-
Gene, whoa, time out. We're not doing this just for the MBTA. We're doing we're doing this to clarify our zoning for the development potential. So I don't think we need to worry about some of these criteria that may or may not swing it.
I suppose so.
I just think we want to clarify. We want to clarify.
Meeting the 50 acres, and meeting the 25 acres and that sort of thing. In order to do that, we have to consider, the definitions. So there's where the only change we talked about making was not going up to the library and the Episcopal Church. Oscar and I were talking about it, and going back to the issue of churches. I don't know. I think it's, unless there's a church property that is really like well, the Presbyterian Church is not in the half acres, but of course, as Oscar just said, we're not necessarily only talking about meeting the MBTA guidelines. That's way, it's way off that area, the half acre. I mean, the half mile. So then the Presbyterian Church is clearly has stopped functioning as a place of worship, except it might be still leasing to a Korean or some Asian group. But the Baptist Church is also likely to lead to being laid down. But Paul Alpert told me he is legal counsel to the Baptist Church. He's also legal counsel to the temple. And our Quaker meeting just hired him because he's got a reputation of knowing something about churches. And he said that the Baptist Church isn't immediately being laid down.
I don't think that's, I don't think it's a question of, which one is coming up. I think it's just, personally, I think that when the town waits for a project to come up to change the zoning, we make a mistake. I think we should be planning the way we want town to work and apartments to flourish. And these are all highly visible spots on main roads. They are perfect for development. So my feeling would be, hopefully none of these places go out of business. Hopefully that they are thriving communities and they stay just the way they are.
Right.
I don't think that planning for the worst and hoping for the best is wishing ill on these communities. I think we're just planning to have a thriving future regardless of how it turns out, but that we need to plan and not just wait for, a rushed fix for a situation that develops. That's
well, we can only meet till 1:30, and there are 3 of us, and 2 of us are in favor of that idea. So I'm not going to stand in the way. I will bring it before the larger group. But
Yes.
What you're suggesting, Heidi, is that we should actually propose rezoning that might go beyond what we did before. For example, the Presbyterian Church.
Well, I think if we rezone one, we have to rezone them all.
Well,
period.
And we had proposed the Episcopal Church, but no, we were talking about not doing that. But for a minute, Oscar, would you go down to the center business? Because I want to look at how we treated those churches. Because we had in mind some rezoning in that area that included the churches. Yeah, if you look at Great Plain Avenue, just above the word GR on, where we have that block of gray.
Yeah.
So that big block of gray, the part in the north, across the street from the Pink Business area, across the street from Bertucci's Plaza, that's already zoned apartments. That's the Highland condominium. In fact, my sister just bought a unit there. That really lovely townhouse development. Okay. And then it turns out that a lot of the St. Peter's property, I don't know if the zoning, I'd have to look at the current zoning. I'm not sure if it actually goes all the way down to May Street. But what is it called? The building that's now going to be the school administration building. Oh, that is the school administration. That's also in an apartment zone, A1 zone now.
Yeah.
So we're really not changing that very much. So that particular zone, but leading down to those.
I'm just pulling up the existing. Here's the existing zoning. So
yeah. So look, now that whole block, including St. Joseph's Church, is apartment. Right. So On the,
including the church, yes, but across the street, it's not.
but
It's single
across the
family.
street, that's their school.
Yes, it's, and
Yeah.
that's, so we've decided, we were proposing that we
We were
actually
proposing that,
consolidate all this, including,
that gray line
Greensfield.
included St. Joseph's School.
Yep.
And it included, and of course, very crucially, it includes
Stephen Palmer.
Stephen Palmer.
Yep.
But then we have the park. And I don't know that there's any reason to be wanting to make that contiguous and include that park. That's just gonna upset people.
I agree.
Yeah.
We were doing that before because we needed those contiguous acres, but if we've got them already, we can let that out. Although we might want to consider the why.
That's true. Okay, so
the why is in there.
the why is, oh yeah, we did put the why in.
Okay.
We included.
So
the
I see that it's, sorry, yes, by one point, I see
So
it.
looking at what's right across the street, that's the Baptist church.
Hillcrest
Right on the
Baptist
corner.
and Christian
Next
Science.
to it is the Christian Science.
Yes.
Then next to it is what used to be the garden center.
Yes, Hillcrest. Yes.
Yeah. So I think we may as well include that whole block.
So what we could do in our note is simply say that Greensfield is exempt. It's not, technically in the same district. So that instead of maybe doing two weird shapes, we just acknowledge that Greensfield is, although it's in the district, it's maintained as green space.
I think the map is more useful if we
just
reflect
wrap it
our
around.
discussion today and wrap it around and not include it. Just as we're talking about changing up on Rosemary Street.
I do have to say, like, from a presenting this to town meeting standpoint, I think you're absolutely right, Jean, and it'll be a whole thing.
So we'll do this.
Yeah.
And then we'll do this.
Really, right on my mind right now is presenting it to the Housing Plan Working Group.
Yeah.
As a
Right there.
whole,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll change that.
So then going to the other side of at the tracks, let's say. Oh, well, no, we don't even go to the other side of the tracks. 4A, I think, is the the Unitarian Church. And what were we talking about for 4A?
4A is we want to adjust the height and density.
So it's already, so that Episcopal Church is already in the center district. Okay, so we're just, it's already in the center district. We don't need to change it to a different district.
No, we're not changing districts in here. We're just talking about changing the dimensional allowances.
And I do want to, the last thing on my agenda to talk about at this meeting is the whole center business and the overlays and Chestnut Street. But let's just finish the churches because the other church is the Congregational Church.
Right. And we agree.
Which is way over on the other side of the,
right.
Yeah, on the other side of the post office.
Which is combined with that other building that is potentially back. Is that 1088? Yeah,
under the friendly 40B. Yeah. So I don't know. The idea of just zoning every church. You could throw it out if that's what you want to do. I mean, put it out before the Housing Plan Working Group and see what they say.
So just a fine point on this, I guess the question is if we're doing this universally throughout town as all the church sites, I'm not saying, I don't know if we're actually saying that yet. What we're saying is where it's contiguous land to some of our downtown or some of this more urban mixed use density areas, we're saying those are logical areas. Either they're adjacent to sites, they're on the major highways, intersections, whatever, that warrant this consideration, right? Hence,
Does
congregation.
Does the Presbyterian Church fit that description?
Yes.
Because it's on a major road.
And it's right near the school. It's right near Newman. Perfect site.
Yeah. So hang on, let me just go back up there and we'll make a note of it.
And I mean,
the idea
for the sake of fairness, I think we ought to include the temple as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although the temple is
Both temples?
thriving.
Aaliyah
It
and
is such an important community center. But
no
both
one's saying that we're going to
temples-
change it. We're changing the zoning. That's all that's
Okay.
happening.
Okay, we'll put it out there. We'll put it
Yeah,
out.
Aaliyah, no, well, I mean, I guess if we're talking about fairness, then, but that's a different kind of neighborhood than any of the other ones that we're talking about.
What is? What
Oh,
is it?
yeah?
Temple Aliyah. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, I
single
mean-
family residence area, even though it's Central Ave.
so we're saying this, and so there's some new ownership in here, right? Heidi, so it's this. I think it's back in here. So it's this one too, right? It's next to the road, but
I
not
think-
these.
I think no, I think it's
But
the
it
one,
is
yeah, the one right
that
next to Highland, but then I think also maybe back towards the top of the pink. I'm not actually sure. I think they own a little bit in the back there.
in this back area.
Ye-
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the
Oh,
main site.
Oh, that's. the
no,
temple.
but
Sorry,
up
go ahead.
at the top of your circle there. I think that they
Yes.
might have another little tiny piece of property, like
Oh,
the back of
gotcha.
their parking lot.
They
Okay.
just bought two more
Yeah,
parcels.
they just bought another home.
Okay.
So-
So they did the two that were on Old Greendale, and then there's another parcel that's in the back, or maybe or you're saying it's another one in the back and the one that's adjacent to
Across the
at this.
street.
Yeah.
There's one across the street from them, the house that I think they're taking over. And then
Across
I
the
think there's
street.
one towards the back of their
Across
property.
across what street? I didn't know they.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
across the street. I think it's it's right at the Webster Greendale. This guy.
I thought there were two.
There are.
There
they're
are,
not-
but
I think they're all contiguous. They're not across the street.
Yeah, like the way where you put the little X's. Isn't that where it is?
No, I don't think those. I think those are not what they're getting. But again, this needs to just get confirmed. We should figure out
Okay.
who's
We can confirm that. Yeah.
somebody.
In fact,
hopefully
you know,
knows.
we have the
Yep.
the plans.
Yes.
I have plans right in a file here because it's just approved.
I'm so
Right.
sorry, you guys. I'm gonna have to run. I have more patients that I have to go take care of. So I apologize.
Okay. Well, Oscar and I will talk about this other thing about the center business district and ideas for allowing housing in the center. You can't just allow mixed use is the issue, Heidi.
Okay.
That won't work.
I think that's fine. I would like to.
Yeah,
have,
exactly. So
you
we're just gonna
know,
talk
first
about.
floor business with residential above. I think that's great. That's the kind of housing I would
yeah.
like to live in.
But the MBTA, that won't meet MBTA guidelines. That's the problem. That's the new rule.
Well,
The guidelines say
but
you can't
the
just have.
guidelines. Yeah, but the guidelines say that you have to zone it so that you can have just housing. And what developers
right.
choose to build, that's a whole different story.
Exactly. So
no
we're
problem.
just going to talk about fine tuning that. That's all. Yep.
Okay.
So Jean, I would
Take care.
question that. I think bye Heidi. So I think if you're saying that the MBTA does not allow you having mixed use with residential, I think as long as it's
I didn't mean that. I put that wrong. Of course, you can have mixed use and
Residential.
multifamily residential in the same zone.
Right.
But in the zone will count because you're allowing the multifamily
Right.
residential.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the question is, and I talked this over with Lee, where should multifamily residential be allowed as well, as the mixed use that's allowed now? So can we scroll this down to
Yep.
Chestnut Street, the center business area? And that's really only the only other big issue I want to talk about.
Okay. So next map 3.
Mhm.
Come on. Yep.
Yeah. So what Lee and I talked about is that there's a distinction between the area that's shown in that sort of light purple, which is the heart of our center business district, where you really want to have a walkable environment.
Yep.
With storefronts and restaurants, and Chestnut Street, which, although that'd be a nice vision for Chestnut Street, that's not the way it is. It's an auto-oriented strip.
Yes.
So why not along Chestnut Street, where that sort of orange and green plaid is?
Yep.
Allow the three-story buildings, just the way, we're doing other places.
You mean apartment one?
Yeah, apartment one type buildings. Extend the zoning to include that parcel that, and we had talked about doing that, but include the apartment one. Now, what was rejected by town meeting was a 4-story building. We're not talking about 4-story buildings. We're only talking about 3-story buildings, So the Hartney Graymont site, we extend that so it looks just the same as the rest of it. Even though, although that means it would allow, restaurants above stores and everything. Nobody would ever do that in there. The access is just not good.
Right. No, I know. There's no point to have mixed use in there.
Yeah. But rather than, another possibility would be to take that whole area that's now got the plaid, take it away, not have it be in central business, not have it be in Chestnut Street overlay, and have that everything beyond that between the tracks there, that's circled by the tracks, have it all be apartment one.
That's what we did.
Oh, that's what we did. Okay. Yes. Okay. Then let's not change that. All right. If that's what we propose, let's not change it. Okay. But
and then we're taking that nursing home, the 4F, we're taking the nursing home and we're adding that in so that it could be the back portion of a parcel that faces Chestnut Street.
Okay.
So that we could get rid of that. Yes. That totally
although it doesn't have any frontage on Chestnut Street, but that's
no, but it doesn't, but it could be combined with somebody on Chestnut Street.
On Chestnut Street.
And then you can we can, actually it's an improvement for people who live on Lincoln Street to not have all those people going in and out on Lincoln.
That's true. So great. So we're going to allow the 3-story standalone apartment buildings in the Chestnut Street overlay, and they have to be allowed by right.
No. So 3-story standalone residential. We're saying
yes.
Well, we haven't said that.
Still allow the 4-story buildings.
Yes.
What we currently allow is 4-story buildings where the first floor is business. We're not going to take that away.
But we're saying you could build to allow multifamily and mixed use multifamily by right, not special permit. That's what we're saying.
That's exactly what we're saying. Right.
Yes. So why not? So I think it could be 4-story residential only, not 3-story.
I think would be better off proposing 3 stories. It's just like what we all have everywhere else in town. And there would be much more resistance to 4-story. I like the idea of saying it's just like, it doesn't go any farther than the 4-story
one.
Then yes, it's just like apartment one. And also when we do allow mixed use, it's also 3 stories of residential. So it's alike.
Right. So 3 stories, either 3 stories over
that's our pattern,
or 3 stories.
Yeah. 3-story residential. So now go up. What I want to discuss is the other areas of the central business district. The idea is, except for, this is reflecting a discussion with Lee. You know how 4D Garden Street is in its own separate overlay?
Yes.
Because it only allows 3 stories? Well, but Lisa,
we're not saying that.
Why not allow?
4D. Yeah.
See, presently the overlay, and I'm talking about our present recommendation. I'm talking about how it's zoning now.
Yes.
4D only allows 3-story buildings.
Yep.
Because it's across the street from the SRB.
Yep.
So, but why not allow 3-story multifamily, just like apartment A
Absolutely.
in Garden Street?
Absolutely.
Great. So we'd do that in Garden Street.
So what we want to say then on 4D is that Garden Street is limited to 3 stories, but it's allowing multifamily.
Exactly. Yeah, on Garden Street. Now, oh, you're making some changes.
So we're going to say that multifamily. So we're going to say apartment 1, basically.
Apartment 1 type,
Dimensional
the way we did
requirements.
in a couple of other places.
Yes. Dimensional
To
requirements.
be
will
apartment
allow it.
with the same dimensional requirements, multifamily with the same dimensional requirements as.
Yep.
Maybe
Okay.
there's some other shorthand we can use
Okay.
as the concept. So are we ready to move up?
Yes.
a little?
Yes.
Okay, but now we're talking about we've got 2 other zones here. We've got the light purple zone with the star in the middle. That's that's a certain overlay, and then we've got the south side of Great
checkerboard,
Plain
yeah,
Ave and
the
right along
checkerboard,
Great Plain, that's the checkered.
Yep.
Now, one of them, sometimes I forget which one is which. What do we say about 4C?
I think we were saying that wants to go to, sorry, let me go look down, look at it.
Yeah, because a distinction between
4C increase height to 48 and 4 stories with 4th floor setback. So we wanted to get additional height there because it's challenging on on those flanks to be able to make those economically viable. So the 4th level would be good as long as it's set back. I think it helps that block be more viable because it's a complicated effort to try and put housing on top of single story. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to take the stuff down. It's challenging with ownership, all kinds of roadblocks, right? So
we don't actually say right here under 4 what the limits are going to be for each thing.
We do in the individual sites, we did. But you're right, we didn't specify on each one of these what they were, except for 4G and 4C.
4C.
So 4C is on either side of the green, right? 4C flanks the green or wraps the green. So north side of Great Plain, yeah, wrapping around Town Hall. So we're saying that all could be 48, 4 stories, but 4th floor has to be set back. And then the 4A side is is in Needham Center and Overlay District A, and we're saying in these situations we want to increase the height. So we haven't specified what they were, so we could.
Right. I think the basic idea with Lee is leave 4A alone.
Okay.
Leave it as do not include standalone multifamily. Leave it alone.
Agreed.
It's really a shopping area. We can still allow.
I don't think we did say that.
Okay. Okay, good.
No, we did. Sorry, to allow multifamily and mixed use multifamily by right. So in other words, the stuff that's here covers, we might have to split this up and say that the Center Business District doesn't get to go to ground, but the Chestnut Street does.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
That's right. Chestnut Street and Garden Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the other hand, so then I just want to check something out. Just grab something right back.
Yep. Gene, I'm going to be walking away too. Be back in 1 minute.
Okay. A and B.
I'm back.
Yeah. So that was good because it got me a chance to not only get out the zoning map, but my little guide, my little quickie guide to the various districts that we've been struggling with Karen about. And this is what Lee thinks, that we should leave both A and B alone and let them be just mixed use, both A and B.
Or 4B. You're talking about
No,
A
I
and
mean,
B.
I mean zoning, an overlay district A, which is the light purple that has the cross hatching,
Yeah.
and overlay district B, which is the light purple that has the stripes.
So why does she want to leave them alone?
Leave them alone and just let them be mixed use.
Well, why?
With it, because
what we're
the
saying
idea
is-
of the walkable mixed use.
What's the difference if we go taller? What does it mean? It's still walkable. All we're doing in 4C, all we're
Well,
doing in the
oh,
overlay north of
oh,
Great Plain
yeah,
is just to
to
add a
go-
story.
Yeah, that the problem is it was deliberate to make that area only 3 stories total. And the idea was not to overshadow the town hall. I mean, that was a deliberate thought, that would be a good thing, not to overshadow the town hall. So, I mean, you could disagree, of course, you know, if from your point of view, I know you do a lot of urban design and I know you're good at it. But I just want to report that that was her thinking. So
I think we need more. We need more density, and there aren't many places to do it. And that
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense,
Mhm.
especially given the economic challenges of building above retail.
But all right,
So we're basically
so
saying
let's
we're
leave
basically-
that alone, that concept alone,
Let's
that
see what people say.
recommendation. We'll
Let's see
leave the
what people say.
recommendation as we have it, but we're not going to add standalone
Correct.
apartments.
Correct. So
Okay.
both districts remain as they are, mixed use.
Yeah,
So the only thing we're on the table is whether we bump up the massing, generally in the north of Great Plains.
yeah, to make it more feasible to
Yes.
build mixed use.
Yeah. And it
Presumably, it's
basically-
really
and it-
not feasible if you're only allowing 2 stories above the one, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so the changes would be regarding Garden Street and regarding Great Plain Avenue,
Yes.
add the housing by right.
So I think what we'll do, I'll just reconstruct, how we want to label these. We'll probably create a second tier that's going to be no multifamily, standalone, and then we'll bring the 4D into 4E and F. So we'll pull out 4ABC or something, or make them a different number. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. But there's a little more. Yeah. We'll
Denmark
that.
Lane still is an anomaly because if that,
Yeah, totally. We're just saying it should acknowledge that. That's all. We're just coloring it for use. That's multifamily in there.
there's something there that I'm not quite sure of. And in this plan, let me look at the zoning map again. You see how the Denmark Lane area and that part of Great Plain Ave is striped with the stripes, not the overhead.
Correct. So the left side of the tracks, west of the tracks is lower than east of the tracks.
It is. Let me just look at this again. All right, so the A is the cross hatching. A is the cross hatching. And I said, A allows, set to overlay A allows 48-inch height and 4 stories. And medium center overlay B is the 3-story. But I didn't know. I wasn't thinking about how B goes all the way down Great Plain Avenue.
Yeah, it goes down to the post office.
Well, if the concept was to kind of protect the area around the town hall and make that lower density, that argument doesn't hold. Going down
here it's stepping down to the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's protecting the neighborhood.
So it's protecting that neighborhood behind.
Yeah,
on Maple. So that's the only reason why.
But we're talking about recommending 4 stories all the way to Lincoln Street. Is that right?
We had not been specific about that, but I would certainly advocate for having it be on going to Lincoln, to Linden or to Lincoln.
Oh, excuse me.
Linden.
Linden.
Yeah.
The typing is so small, I misread it. Yeah. Huh.
What do you think?
I don't know. We're proposing so many changes. I'm almost thinking, all right, I really think leave it alone. Leave all that light purple alone.
I think what we're saying, Jane, is
And
to me,
even-
what I'm saying is the hatch, the cross hatch, not the
the
diagonal, would jump the way it does on the north side of Great Plain just for those blocks to take it up. Right, so it goes basically up on either side and completes the downtown east of the tracks. So I think that's, and so everything west of the tracks is just a single hatch, which is the 3-story going, right? Because it's transition, it's transitional. So it's like Garden
All
Street.
right.
Basically Garden Street. It's like Garden Street.
So the divider is the tracks. That does make sense because that's a very big, important divider.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're basically saying west of the tracks is 3-story, east of the tracks would be 4-story.
Yeah, and of course, west of the tracks includes Garden Street also. All right, I go along with that.
So I
And
have a question for you. Just
yeah,
occurred to me. On the west side of Garden Street, there are those multifamily units. There's some really charming
that's a
multifamily.
40B, is a 40B development.
Yes.
And
So
one of them is a historic house that was the oldest house in that neighborhood,
what do
and
you
it was
think?
preserved.
Should we acknowledge any of that as something? In other words, there's just single family zoning on the
It
west side of
is.
Garden Street.
It probably meets the density standards of apartment 1. I don't know. One of the, I think it was Dan Matthews was saying he wanted the MBTA guidelines to allow us to include the areas that have been developed under 40B. In other words, let us include those areas,
Yeah.
even though they're way across 128, et cetera,
Oh,
and
those
not
are
transit
that's
oriented at
no,
all.
that I don't think I don't buy that argument.
But that's true. But it would be taking, you know what it would be like? There are two things. That Denmark Lane, that little tiny Denmark Lane industrial area.
Yep.
And that 40B development off Garden Street would be little tiny apartment 1s. In a way, it makes more sense for Denmark Lane to be an apartment 1 than to be industrial. It certainly does. And also more sense than to be business, central business. Especially if, as we're discussing now, wait a minute.
I agree with you.
Wait a
In a
minute.
way, it doesn't make sense because you're not going to be over retail that deep.
So, yeah, I just have a clarifying question. West of the tracks, I know we talked about allowing 3-story standalone housing on Garden Street, in the Garden Street area.
Yeah.
We also we'd essentially make that zone all the same. So what's now purple with stripes along Great Plain Avenue, west of the tracks, would also allow standalone 3-family.
We're saying no, it wouldn't. The purple is not going to allow standalone, but Garden Street would.
Yeah, that was the original idea, right?
Yes,
that's what we were talking about, right?
Yes, yes.
So
what we really should say probably is that the Denmark Lane should be more like Garden Street.
Denmark Lane should be more like Garden Street, yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, or
it could be, we could bring over Chestnut Street.
Or it could, yeah, we could do that, even though it's it's a little discontinuous, but why not? Yeah.
Well, but we'd say it would be 3 stories, not, so it really is more Garden Street because
Yeah,
it's 3 stories, not
yeah,
Chestnut
it's
Street.
more Garden Street than anything else. Maybe that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But picking up the 40B development on Garden Street, I think the only thing we could do is call it apartment 1, but I don't know if bringing in this little dot of apartment 1.
I don't know if it makes any sense, but it's,
Yeah.
it would, what does make sense is that that's a neat little street that's got some density on it,
Yeah.
but it's all, multifamily. It's a beautiful.
And there are a lot, even though it's SRA, there are a lot of pre-existing 2-family houses on that street.
It's SRB.
And, I meant SRB, 10,000 square foot lot, single family. There happen to be a lot of pre-existing 2 families on that street.
Right.
And they've recently been either reconstructed or renovated to be more substantial 2 families. There's only actually a couple of single families on that street, including the one Steve and I used to live in, right on the corner.
Are you talking about going north of May, or are you talking about south of May?
South of May.
On the corner of May and Garden?
Oh, what I'm talking about actually is, yeah, right on the corner of May and Garden. That was our house, right smack
Really?
on the corner.
That's awesome.
And then next to that was another single family house. And then I think the tract right next to that, so the third one from the corner
Yeah.
is the multifamily.
The long one, yeah, this guy.
No, on Garden Street. If I said May Street,
Oh,
I
coming
missed it.
down.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
coming down. I think
Gotcha.
that right above the word, the 4D, where you have your little star,
Yes.
that parcel, I think, is the one we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that your house was single family, then you're saying this was a 2-family?
No, that actually, it gives the appearance of a 2-family because both our house on the corner and that house were doctors' offices.
Right.
When doctors used to have offices attached to their homes.
Yes.
So
it's an ADU.
The woman, the family who lived there, they've moved away, but she had a music studio where she had lessons, she gave lessons.
Mhm.
And so she had the former doctor's office as her studio, and people would come with their children and take music lessons.
Right.
We, because the prior owners, I think I've mentioned this before, the prior owners had converted the doctor's offices to an ADU suite without, as far as I know, any permission from the town, and their mother lived there.
Yep.
So when we moved in, my college-age son lived there, and then my college graduate stepdaughter lived there when she was a nurse locally. It was great. It's just great for a growing family, with young adults. So, but I agree with you, oh gosh, it's almost 1:30.
Yeah.
All right.
We won't invent more spaces
Yeah.
right now.
I think we're finished. I have to be finished because I have to go pick up.
Okay. I have one thing I want to go over with you, and that is an interpretation of the MBTA.
Yeah.
Because Lee and I had a conversation about how to interpret what is considered the 15 units per acre. And I think we have differing opinions about it. She's more optimistic. I'm not optimistic, but she is.
You think we might not meet it with our A1 zoning?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Oh, well, tell me. I haven't focused on that at all.
So go to page here. I'll bring it up. Yeah, I just want you
I've got it right in front of me. I've got the text right in front of me.
Yep. Page 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Minimum gross density.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things here. You got to read minimum gross density, and then the next paragraph down, right? So in district-wide gross density. So by way of example, to meet that requirement for a 40-acre multifamily zoning district, the zoning must allow for at least 15 multifamily units per acre, or a total of 600 units. So what I think, how I interpret that is that sort of sets your expectations of how many units. But the reality is you don't get to build those units over the entire 40 acres. You're only building them on the developable acreage, which might be 25 or 30. So you're going to have to build proportionally higher density to get to the 600, right? So
that's the second paragraph, right?
Yes.
For purposes of determining compliance, it will not count in the determination any excluded land, except, because this is in the statute, so they have to have this except.
Yep.
Except public rights of way, private rights of way, and publicly owned land used for recreational.
Which is everything that they basically said above. So the only thing that you can use is wetlands or Title 5.
The only thing,
right. So the Title 5 and any environmental code issues, state environmental code issues, are the only things that would be allowed to be literally deducted. But
where does that create problems for us? Like
I don't think it does, but I'm just trying to get to the base understanding of what will we need to deliver when we
if
do
we have
the math.
Some areas that we think would be excluded land. We have to consider that. Well,
Yes.
yeah, I agree. We have
But
to
I don't think
consider
we have
that.
a lot of that. I don't know if we do or not.
Yeah,
Yet. But we're just,
Rosemary Ridge and Petrini Apartments certainly have in their acreage wetland. There's the Rosemary Brook goes right through. In fact, it divides the two parcels.
right.
But is there something that says wetlands are okay? I thought there was.
Well, they're okay to count, but then you have to, but you deduct, I guess those are the ones that you can deduct for your, maybe that's what you can use to deduct if you're calculating your density. That's the only thing I can read. And that's over on, that's the paragraph C.
All right, let me look at that again. But I
Page
really,
11. Yeah.
I might have to think about this.
Yeah, we don't have to answer it right now.
So if it's
Gee.
3 years, this territory. Even
I
though
just-
the zoning district must permit 15 years or any amount of is subject. Yeah,
So in other words,
Even if
the last line.
I thought
even if
this was
such
a
compliance-
saving. I thought this was this is a question for tomorrow at the
Yeah.
thing. I thought this was a saving thing. So you have a parcel that includes wetlands. So you zone it, disregarding the wetlands, so that it would allow 15 units per acre. Oh, you can't actually build 15 units because of the wetlands. That's okay.
But
That's the way I interpret it.
Only for wetlands, right? So all the other ones, when you go back and take out for streets, right of ways, recreation, parks, all that other stuff that are not
Mhm.
wetlands, you
Mhm.
have to now do the total number of units on what is developable.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think that then increases, because if your average is 15 over 40 acres and you're only building on 27 acres, your average is going to be higher, because you still have to hit the number that you calculate you need based on the 40 acres, right? So the 40 acres times the 15 units gets you 600, but I got to deliver 600, but I'm not delivering 600 on 40 acres. I'm delivering 600 on 27 or 28 or whatever the total number ends up
Mhm.
being. So I think that makes you ratchet up the density.
Actually,
And so the
okay.
average density. So it might be 25 on that site. It might be 17 over here, whatever, right? I mean, it's going to come up with an average.
All
That's
right, I know
15.
this is difficult. I really struggled through that very same issue in reading this.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to ask these questions tomorrow. And I
Yes.
hope that there's and what we get some answers that make some
Or
sense.
we'll get them from DHCD. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
get answers from.
All right,
Yeah.
I have to pick up the granddaughter at school. Bye-bye.
Bye. Cheers. Yes, we're
And
adjourned.
Oscar, thanks for
Yes.
your work on this. You've done so much work on all this. And I know we're asking here for you to do some more work.
Well, I will, but not for tomorrow. I'll make another round of all the changes after we have our conversation tomorrow. Make sense?
Okay, sure. Yeah, because there may be other changes that.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, let's
Okay,
just go.
that makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, bye, Joe.
Bye.
Bye, Oscar.
Cheers.
Yeah.
We're voting.
Where do we say?
We're
Where's the thing
voting.
that
We are.
says- Oh, I'm looking for the thing that says leave.
Do we have to vote?
Oh, do we have to vote? Okay, there's two of us here and we're a quorum. I propose that the changes to the implementation roadmap and the narrative accompanying it and the plans accompanying it be made as we discussed at this meeting.
So seconded.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Roll call. Oscar Mertz
Yes.
and Jean McKnight is yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Yes.
Okay. Cheers.
All right, now. I think we have to get, there we go. Leave.
Bye.